Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto discovered Tayuya was in Uzumaki Part 1? Rain poured down the valley as if washing away the burns and marks of the battle that had taken place. The final valley, the place where two of the greatest shinobi in time fought till the other was dead, Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju, and now, Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki. The two friends had battled each other with all their might. Both were willing to go all the way for what they believed in. One was for power while the other was for friendship. It was a true test for both shinobi but also a loss. Perhaps this was a repeat of the past or an event that foreshadowed things to come. Either way, fate was very cruel. The aftermath of this grand battle resulted in two bonds being severed. One was the ties that bound a shinobi to his village while the other was a bond that tied him to a friend. Sasuke left the scene with his village and former friend behind his back. He never wavered and only looked on ahead, eyes singled on revenge. The bond between him and his older brother was now stronger than ever. In order to attain his lifelong goal, he must sacrifice whatever he must in order to achieve power. This was what a true avenger must be, but the road ahead was sad and lonely. Naruto tried everything in his power to stop him from going to that snake. He was even willing to unleash his inner demon just to stop him, but it wasn't enough. His call never reached his friend's ears. Sasuke was too submerged in his own search for power that he failed to notice what was important. He severed a bond that was so precious and irreplaceable. Battered and defeated, Naruto lay face up to the weeping sky, his eyes closed in deep slumber. Rain continued to cleanse the land as two forms dropped down near the unconscious boy, a silver-haired man wearing a mask and his little ninja hound. Kakashi looked down at his student with guilt, sadness, and regret. He kneeled down and gently took the boy in his arms. He was too late. He was always late. When it mattered the most, he had failed them. Dark clouds spread ever so slowly up the valley to the surrounding forest. It washed away the battles that had been laid, cleansing all the sweat and blood that was sacrificed to achieve one's mission. In a forest of bones, a lone boy stood and died proudly for what he believed in. His eyes were still wide open as the rain cried for his lost soul. It spread even further to a wide open field of sliced trees where a red-headed girl lay dead underneath a stack of human-sized logs. Water from the rain trickled down her form, washing away the blood dripping down her mouth, as if wishing her a final farewell from the world. However, the girl let out a small cough, new blood coming forth. Gradually, the rain ceased, making way for a bright light to pierce through the dark gloomy sky. The first ray of light kissed her lips where a scowl could be usually seen, but right now, her face was peaceful like death's touch. A new beginning awaited. Ooh, my red thread of destiny, ooh. Three black-cloaked shinobi quickly flew through the trees. Rain fell down over their black cloaks and porcelain animal-styled masks. All were silent and focused on their mission. It wasn't until they reached an opening in the forest that had them stop on a low-lying branch, their posture rigid in anticipation. Ahead of them was a great expanse of numerous leveled trees. It was as if an angry, vicious, and rampaging beast had passed by, laying waste to wherever it went. How can an entire forest be decimated like this? One of the cloaked shinobi said. A male, judging from how deep their voice was. Beside him, the second cloaked shinobi kneeled down and examined a sliced trunk nearby. These logs are cleanly cut through. Judging from the range of this destruction, I'd say this was done by a high-level wind jutsu. Must have been quite a sight to behold. No one could have survived an attack such as this. And if someone did, they're better off dead. Then again, we might find a clue somewhere within this mess. However, this is a lot of land to cover. Right. And this isn't the only area we were assigned to. The third cloaked shinobi jumped down on one of the logs, grabbing the two conversing shinobi's attention. Have you sensed something, Tsuki? The second cloaked shinobi asked. Tasuki shook her head. No, nothing. No signs of human life, but. She glanced back at her companions. You two go on ahead. I'll stay behind and have a look around. All right, stay sharp. The two disappeared to the surrounding forest. Alone, Tasuki jumped from log to log, looking for anything odd in sight. The Lady Hokage had formed a search team regarding the recovery team sent yesterday. The medic corps were sent to aid the recovery team and get them back to the Hidden Leaf village safely. The Anbu Black Ops search team, however, were sent to capture any of the sound shinobi they come across, either they be dead or alive. The rain slowly died down until they were nothing more but light droplets here and there. The dark clouds above gradually dispersed, making way for warm rays of light to touch the cold wet ground. Everywhere, there were puddles that shone as light reflected on their surface. It made a beautiful scene to behold even with the amount of destruction, but that wasn't what caught Suki's eyes. A few meters away was a person with long red hair, but they were crushed by two larger than human-sized logs. They're most likely dead from the impact, she mused. Dashing through the obstacles, she arrived at her destination. What she found there sparked her interest. Based on the description of Anbu Captain Zo, the red-headed girl was one of the sound shinobi from the joint Hidden Sand and Sound Invasion, one of the four that had a hand on the third Hokage's death, and now, one of Sasuke Uchiha's escorts. Hidden beneath her cloak, Tasuki clenched her fist as memories of that day came to mind. She remembered the sound of crows, the ominous birds flying overhead, a body splattered in blood, how her world turned upside down when she beheld his lifeless body, how she wanted to cradle him in her arms and cry in anguish, but she couldn't afford to have a breakdown. Not with her squad of Anbu beside her. Her hands were numb as she picked up his precious sword. She had promised to aid him if he needed help with his mission to track down Kabuto Yakushi, so sure she would see him again the morning after, but she was too late. Hayate was already dead when they had found him. Taking a deep breath, she exhaled all the negative feelings inside of her and took a look at the dead redhead underneath the logs. Now was not the time to reminisce about things better left in the past. Right now, she needed to take this girl back to the village. Her corpse might tell some information about Orochimaru. Suddenly, the redhead coughed out blood, startling Tasuki from her thoughts. This girl is still breathing. But how? I didn't even sense her chakra. Even now, she whispered. The girl was crushed from the waist below, and her breathing was labored. Internal injury perhaps. The redhead coughed again, and Tasuki immediately went into action, crossing both index and middle fingers in a cross pattern. In a poof of smoke, a shadow clone stood beside her. As her shadow clone moved by the girl's head, the real Tasuki took down her hood, revealing purple hair beneath. Drawing out the sword on her back, she channeled her chakra into it, making it sharper and deadlier. With a quick diagonal slash, she cleanly cut through logs, missing the redhead by just an inch. As the large logs gave away, her shadow clone quickly pulled the girl out before any more damage could be done. Sheathing the blade and dispelling her shadow clone, Tasuki kneeled by the redhead's side and placed her right hand over the girl's chest, palm starting to glow green. She knew the basics of medical ninjutsu, but she wasn't as proficient at it as any of the medical nin. Her hand moved up and then down to the redhead's lower body where it seems the most damage was done. She couldn't heal something like this. The most she could do to keep her alive was to. Moving her hand back to the redhead's upper body, Tasuki placed both hands over the girl's left lung, treating her injury. When her breathing evened out, Tasuki took off her cloak and carefully put it over the redhead's form. That should at least keep your body warm, she said, before lifting the girl up and carefully maneuvering her body so that she was riding behind the Anbu's back. With everything set, secure, and in place, Tasuki jumped off the logs and out of the damaged forest, making her way back towards the Hidden Leaf village. Kakashi flew through the trees with Pakun following right behind him. They had found Naruto at the final valley and were heading back to the Hidden Leaf Village. Of all the places where both his students had battled, it had to be at the place where the first Hokage finally defeated Madara Uchiha. This time though, the Uchiha won the fight. Sasuke won, but at least he spared Naruto. It gave Kakashi peace of mind to know that both were still with him in the land of the living. Death was such a permanent thing. If losing any one of his students would feel as painful as losing Obito and Rin did, he never wanted to experience such a thing again if he could help it. He couldn't afford to lose another comrade. What did you feel, Minato-sensei, when we both lost Obito and Rin? When I lost you to the nine-tailed demon fox's attack, He stopped his train of thought and looked back at the unconscious blonde he was carrying on his back. Naruto was sound asleep with a serene expression painting his features, so unlike his loud and hyperactive persona. His wounds were serious, but they were already healing at a fast rate. He would be alright thanks to the nine-tailed demon fox inside of him. That at least comforted the Jonin. Naruto would be alright. Kakashi quickly looked ahead as he spotted movement due southwest. An enemy perhaps? No. Is it her? He couldn't tell for sure, but it looked like her. Kakashi quickened his pace, following the blur he had seen. Ooh. Tsuki sensed a presence coming towards her. She reached for her sword, gripping the hilt tightly, but soon let it go when she realized just who the chakra signature belonged to. Their mission was supposed to be kept secret from the others. She could boost her speed and minimize her chakra's presence to somehow lose him, but this was him she was talking about. He would just catch up anyways. He was her senior after all, but the question in the air was, why is he here? Tsuki maintained her speed, waiting for her former Anbu captain to catch up. Moments later, a silver-haired man dropped down the trees from her left, emulating her speed level. Kakashi, she greeted. Yugao. I smiled. Pakun. The ninja hound suddenly interrupted. Both shinobi sweat dropped. Yugao faked a cough. Kakashi. During missions, I would ask that you call me by my codename, Tsuki. HMMN. Kakashi blinked back an eye, looking thoughtful. Ah, I see. That won't be a problem, Yugao. The Anbu shook her head with a chuckle. She glanced at the Jonin beside her and then at the genin on his back. What are you doing here, Kakashi? I thought the medic corps were the ones supposed to assist the recovery team. Kakashi looked back at the blonde he was carrying. They are. But I couldn't just stand by doing nothing while both my students fought. So Sasuke Uchiha managed to escape. It wasn't a question. She noticed that he was only carrying one. His silence was an answer to itself. I'm sorry. He sighed. It doesn't matter now. Nothing would change no matter how much I wanted to. He shifted his attention back to her and then at the passenger on her back. That girl you're carrying. He narrowed an eye. I'm guessing the Lady Hokage sent an Anbu search team to capture any of the enemy ninja. She nodded. I don't know if you knew. But this girl is one of Orochimaru's bodyguards. They're the ones responsible for erecting that barrier ninjutsu to hinder us from helping out the third. I see. If she's one of Orochimaru's bodyguards, then she must know some of his secrets. We might be able to track down Sasuke's whereabouts once the intelligence division. A sudden cough from the redhead cut him off. Yugao felt liquid dripping on her left shoulder. She stopped on a large branch. Kakashi and Pakun followed suit. She carefully laid down the redhead and moved the cloak's flaps to examine the girl's upper body, hands starting to glow green. What's her situation? Kakashi asked. Her lower body is badly damaged. Both her legs are fractured if not broken. However, the cause of internal bleeding comes from her punctured left lung, Yugao answered. Then you shouldn't have carried her on your back. She stopped her jutsu and stared at the Jonin. My mistake. My medical capabilities still need a lot of work. She looked back at the girl. I thought I healed it properly. He sighed. Well, what's done is done. Kakashi. Pakun called. HMMN. What is it, Pakun? Kakashi looked at the ninja hound closing in on the redhead and taking a whiff of her scent. It's this girl. His big pug eyes narrowed. Her smell is familiar. Although I can't remember when, I know I've tracked her scent before. Kakashi kneeled down beside the redhead with a narrowed eye. Yugao was getting curious as well as she examined the girl properly for the first time. She was young, maybe a year or so older than Naruto Uzumaki, with long untamed red hair. For someone so small, Yugao couldn't grasp that this kid was, one of Orochimaru's close bodyguards. Then again, she and her comrades were strong enough to beat Genma and Rado, both Jonin-level shinobi, almost to their death. Yugao clenched her fist as she remembered Hayate and the third Hokage's death. She knew that she should place all the blame on Orochimaru for the bad things that happened before, during, and after the Leaf invasion, but she couldn't help but hate the person who murdered Hayate and these child bodyguards that helped kill the third, yet as soon as these feelings welled within her, she forcefully shoved them down. This girl was a tool used by Orochimaru. Just as the hidden sand village was used and thrown away when they were of no use to him anymore. It's the sad truth of the life of a shinobi, she mused, but then her train of thought was cut off as the redhead was seized again by another bout of coughing with more blood coming forth out of her mouth. Alarmed, Yugao carefully turned the redhead to her side, so she wouldn't choke on her own blood. We don't have time for this. I need to get her to the 5th Hokage immediately. Why don't you let me take her? Kakashi offered as he laid down Naruto beside the redhead. A still moment passed as a sudden thought came to mind. Both Kakashi and Yugao pictured a certain blonde man together with his lovely redheaded wife, but that image soon faded away, and the Jonin picked up the girl in his arms while the Anbu carried the boy on her back as they made their way to the hidden leaf village. Ooh. Tsunade opened the door leading outside the intensive care unit 6. 3 figures were already waiting there in the hallway. One was the oldest of the Sand siblings, Tamari, while the other 2 were from the Leaf's Nara clan, Shikaku and his son, Shikamaru, who was the squad leader of the recovery team she sent on a mission a day ago to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha. As of yet, the mission was still ongoing as the status of the squad member, Naruto Uzumaki, was still unknown. According to Shikamaru, Naruto was the last one who went after Sasuke. The other members were already taken back to the Leaf Village and received proper care. 2 of them were in critical condition. It was a good thing they weren't too late. She had just finished stabilizing the condition of Choji Akamichi. Letting out a sigh, Tsunade smiled. He's gonna be just fine. She closed the door and walked towards one of the benches at the side. The antidote worked. The extermination of cells caused by the pill's effects has been wrested. She sat down with a sigh and looked at the head of the Nara clan. I couldn't have done it without your help, Shikaku. The Nara clan's sacred medicine guide was invaluable. The work that went into that manual. The years of research. Well, it's quite impressive to say the least. Shikaku nodded his head with a smile. Thank you. Suddenly, frantic footsteps were heard, and a call from a woman's voice took the blonde's attention. Lady Tsunade. Shizune appeared from view and stopped just a few ways short from them. Neji Hyuga is safe. His condition has stabilized. And there's more. I've just heard that Kakashi Hatake and Naruto Uzumaki have returned, and they've been examined. Naruto's injuries are serious but not life-threatening. He's going to be okay. Although Tsunade was relieved to hear that Naruto was safe, she heard the unspoken news as clear as day. Sasuke Uchiha got away. She looked down at her lap, brows scrunched down. Just 2. Shifting her gaze back at the dark-haired Chunin, she said, Shikamaru, your mission was a failure. She saw him bow his head, his frame trembling. She closed her eyes. However, everyone's alive. That's the most important thing. Next time, the mission will go perfectly. Shikamaru promised. Tsunade smiled. Shikaku approached his son, laying an arm on his shoulder, and together, Both men exited the hallway. Across from her, Tamari stood up from the bench and nodded at her. I'll be going as well. I have to check up on Gaara and Kankuro. I thank you for responding and coming to our aid. Tamari shrugged. It's the least we could do after everything. She bowed her head again, before leaving the hallway. Tsunade leaned her head back and closed her eyes. She wanted to get some rest at least for a bit from the recent events, but it was interrupted when she sensed someone approaching. She opened her eyes and saw Shizune looking at her with a troubled expression. What is it, Shizune? Her attendant looked around the area first, before leaning in conspiringly. Lady Tsunade, I didn't mention it earlier, but it wasn't just Kakashi and Naruto who returned to the village. That got the blonde's full attention. What do you mean? According to one of the medic corps who received them, Kakashi came in with a member of the Anbu Black Ops. They were probably a member of the search team you'd sent earlier. Tsunade furrowed her brows. One of the Anbu search teams, huh? Did they find something of importance? I take it that we got something valuable. Shizune nodded an affirmative. Yes. Before I came here for my report, they told me the enemy shinobi was going to be placed in Unit 4. They could very well be in critical condition. I see. The blonde stood up. Lead the way, Shizune. Yes, milady. Both women walked down the hallway and followed the path leading to the intensive care Unit 4. As Shizune opened the doors, Tsunade saw a member of the medic corps doing a check-up on a person lying on a bed. She couldn't properly see the person's face from her view, just that they had red hair, so she walked closer. That was when she noticed an Anbu leaning on the far side of the wall. It was Yugao Azuki, codenamed Tasuki, Moon. Tasuki disappeared into the shadows and appeared a second later, kneeling before Tsunade. Lady Hokage. Tell me the situation. I've encountered a sound shinobi in a forest near the Land of Fire's border. Based on the reports of the 3 Anbu present during the Lord Third's encounter with Orochimaru, she was one of the Snake Sanin's bodyguards, most likely the very same who escorted Sasuke Uchiha out of the village. I would have delivered her to the intelligence division had she not needed immediate medical attention. I've arranged for one of the medic corps to help stabilize her condition. I see. Is there anything else? There is. I came back to the village with Kakashi Hatake, and while we were together, his ninja hound mentioned that he knew her scent from before, although he didn't remember when that was. Tasuki looked towards the enemy ninja. I also don't know if this is her ability. But for some reason, I can't sense her chakra. Even now when she's right there asleep. It's like she's hiding them subconsciously as a form of self-defense. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and shifted her attention to the redhead lying on the bed. Curious. Someone Kakashi must have met some time ago, as well as possessing an ability very rare to see even among sensory-type shinobi. Where the hell does Orochimaru even get these types? She walked towards the girl, and the medical nin moved aside when he saw her approach. She expected this encounter to be quickly dealt with. She would check up the redhead's condition, making sure she would survive, and then hand her afterwards to the intelligence division to glean out any information they can about Orochimaru. Never did she expect to see the enemy shinobi to wear a familiar face. She heard a gasp coming from behind. She couldn't fault Shizune. She almost did so herself. But why? Why her? And why now? Lady Tsunade, is that? The blonde made no move to reply, just examined the redhead more fully. From the shape of her face to the color of her hair, if the girl would open her eyes, it would have been brown. There's no mistaking it. It's her. How long has it been? A year perhaps. Maybe more. She gritted her teeth and looked at the medical nin beside her, nodding her head. The medical nin bowed and took his leave. Once the 3 were left inside the room, Shizune asked, "Do you think she was only there to spy on us for Orochimaru?" It's possible. You never know what goes around that bastard's head. But still, I can't believe she's with someone like Orochimaru. Who is she, Lady Hokage? Tasuki asked. Tsunade eyed the Anbu, before turning back again to the redhead. She was a girl we met a year ago. Shizune and I were in the land of thorns in a town called Kakarashiwa. As usual, I was there to try my luck for a chance of money. But then. So, tell me, why are you following us? What's your name? The redhead crossed her arms. Isn't it customary to introduce yourself first before asking for someone else's name? The only reply the girl got was a poke to the forehead. Well, brat, it's Tsunade. The redhead gave her a glare, rubbing her forehead. I'm not a brat, and it's Tayuya. Okay, Tayuya, why are you following us? You have my hat, she deadpanned. Tsunade blinked back her eyes. Hat, actually, your pig has it. Taunton, Shizune asked. Oink, oink, said pig piped up. The smile that memory made was now tainted by dark thoughts of deception. Was it all a lie? Was she with Orochimaru all this time? Did he send her to keep an eye on me? That thought troubled the blonde. She was just somebody we met. I helped her, and she helped me later on. I don't know what had happened to her after that, but I never expected for it to be this. Lady Tsunade, what are we gonna do with her? Shizune asked. Even though we knew her in the past, she's still an enemy shinobi. I know. The blonde closed her eyes with a furrowed brow. But we need her to survive first. After that, she'll be handed to the intelligence division. 3 days later. Her name was Tayuya, a girl of 14. Red hair, brown eyes. Orochimaru's bodyguard. Tayuya of the North Gate. Inoichi was looking down at a flute she held in her hands, but as she placed it to her lips, a slicing sound from behind made her turn around. Coming towards them like a raging bull were swirling winds that cut through everything in its path. She immediately closed her eyes as the powerful wind washed over them. There was a scream, her scream, but the sound was soon drowned out by the hounding roar of whirlwinds. The next time she opened her eyes, they were falling. Everywhere they looked was filled with nothing but thick blurry wind and flying wood. Everything was being sliced, and the dimly lit forest gave way to the bright blue sky above. Eventually, they landed on her back with a deep thud. She coughed up blood, but even though she was disoriented, her eyes immediately fixed up to the sky as multiple large logs came crashing down towards them. Her breath hitched, and tears started to blur their vision. Inoichi frowned but moved on to the next memory. She jumped high above, overtaking a blonde shinobi, Naruto Uzumaki, and falling down to his level where she slugged him hard right in the face. Sasuke Uchiha clutched his shoulder as glowing marks crawled up his skin, covering his entire left side. He glared at them with hate-filled Sharingan eyes. Come and try it. She walked up the stairs and opened the double doors as she reached the top. A bright light pierced through the darkness, blinding them for a second. Once outside, she glanced back at the hideout she came from. Inoichi opened his eyes. A hideout. This is where they were going to take Sasuke Uchiha. He motioned his fellow analysis team member, Tanbo Tobatake, to fetch the world map pasted on a wall. Once he got it, he marked the general area where the hideout was located, the land of rice paddies, or better known as of now, the land of sound. Give this to the Hokage. It's where the location of the hideout Sasuke Uchiha went to. Also, he took out a pen and paper inside a desk drawer and drew a rough sketch of the hideout's entrance. Tanbo took both items, rolling the map. Amazing. As expected from you, Inoichi. The blonde waved him off and headed back to the unconscious redhead. The girl, Tayuya, was encased in a domed semicircle with 3 sets of seals surrounding her. He placed a hand back on top of her head and closed his eyes. She made a half-handed ram sign, releasing the energy that held up a barrier made of purple flames. After that, they quickly passed through a forest of trees, jumping and landing beside a black-haired man with rotting dead arms, Orochimaru. Her companions were also there. The blue-gray-haired boy and large orange-haired boy took their master's arms around their shoulders. Together, the five jumped up to the sky. She opened the door, and they saw two people doing something intimate in the dark. She quickly slammed the door shut. Inoichi cleared his throat, blushing slightly. He moved on to the next memory. They looked over at the Hidden Leaf Village and at the civilians walking and smiling by. Tayuya sighed and closed her eyes. Inoichi wondered what she was thinking. Even though he could see through a person's memory, he couldn't hear their thoughts during those times. Eventually, Tayuya opened her eyes and looked at the far-off mountain where the faces of the past Hokages were carved, the Hokage monument. She sighed again, before shifting her gaze at the main gate where shinobi from different countries entered the village. Inoichi went further back to the next memory sometime before the Chunin selection exams. There was blood everywhere. On her hands, on the walls, and on the corpse underneath them. Tayuya was tightly gripping the kunai embedded on the dead man's chest, her breathing heavy. "He's dead," she said, her voice small. "He's dead. I did it. I finally got my justice." She slowly stood up and quickly left the room, gliding down the halls until she reached outside. It was snowing. "Who are you?" An agitated voice suddenly whispered. Inoichi stiffened and cautiously looked around, but there was only darkness that greeted him. The memory he had previously seen was nowhere to be found either. There was nothing. He frowned and continued searching through her memories. At the center of the room was a velvet chair. Sitting on it was Orochimaru. "It's been almost 2 years since I gave you my gift. Over the years, these 4 little scrawny birds have grown into deadly predatory eagles. With every kill, they go stronger," he said the last part with vigor. He chuckled. "Do you want more power?" "Yes," Tayuya whispered immediately. "Why are you here?" The unknown voice whispered again. Like before, the memory he was viewing disappeared, and Inoichi whirled towards the direction of the voice he heard. "Who's there? Show yourself," he asked loudly, his words echoing all around him. That was when he noticed a red-headed girl nearby holding a single pill. What made his eyes open wide was that instead of looking through Tayuya's eyes, he was seeing her from the outside. Tayuya swallowed the pill. Suddenly, she gasped and clutched her neck. Her body quivering until she fell down to her knees. Dark mists crawled up to her legs, to her torso, and eventually enveloped her entire being. From there, something took shape. First were arms that shot out and pushed itself out until a torso was formed, next were legs that slowly stood up, and from its bowed position, there came a head. Inoichi wasn't sure what it was, but it looked like a person. Once it solidified and the mist gradually dissipated, he was shocked to find another Tayuya. The only difference between the two was that this one had marks all over its skin, the curse mark. It leaned down and whispered something to the kneeling redhead, but what made his skin crawl was while it was doing that, its golden eyes were locked on his. Inoichi took a step back, but suddenly, he felt a heavy pressure being brought down on his shoulders, making him fall down to his knees. He saw that Tayuya had collapsed as well and that the other one stood up and approached him. "You aren't welcome," it said, reaching out and grasping his neck. Inoichi's eyes widened as he felt his chakra being slowly pulled out of him. He clutched its wrists, trying to pry it open, but it wouldn't budge. It was too strong. It got stronger even when the marks all over its body glowed and spread out. Its body started to change. Its skin turned brown, its hair grew longer and turned from red to pink, horns shot out of the top of its head, and the whites of its eyes turned black as ink. What remained the same was its golden eyes. Golden eyes that made him stare into the deepest, darkest abyss. It was as if he was drowning into its dark pools. A hand suddenly yanked its hold off of his neck. Coughing, Inoichi looked up to see a woman pushing the thing out until it slinked back into the darkness. She lowered her arms and walked towards Tayuya, kneeling down and caressing her face. From this angle he couldn't see the woman's features as they were hidden by her long red hair. Coughing, Inoichi asked, "Who are you?" The woman shifted her head slightly and raised an arm towards him. There was a force that pushed him away. The last thing he saw before he went out was blue eyes. Inoichi gasped as if he was breathing air for the first time after being submerged underwater for so long. "Hey, are you alright?" Tanbo ran back and helped him up from the floor. He clutched his head and gritted his teeth. "What happened? You suddenly collapsed. And the sound ninja. It's her curse mark. It suddenly activated." "What?" He looked at Tayuya and saw glowing marks receding from her face. She was still unconscious, so she didn't activate it on her own, but she was breathing heavily as if she ran a mile. He frowned. "What the heck was that I just saw? That was no memory. Neither was it a barrier ninjutsu. It's something else. Something sinister and foul. Orochimaru. Was it the curse mark? And who was that woman I just saw?" Approaching the girl, he placed a hand again on the top of her head, closing his eyes. He tried to enter that particular mindscape again, but for some reason, he couldn't go back. He tried again to enter through a memory, but it had the same result. He tried again for the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time. Nothing. Inoichi opened his eyes. "Impossible. What's wrong?" Tanbo asked. He shook his head. "Nothing. I can see nothing. It's as if her mind is locked to me." "But how? Just a few minutes ago you could." Tayuya's breathing suddenly quickened in short breaths, grabbing their attention. Her head lolled to the side, her eyes dazed and mouth ajar. The marks from before creeped up again, covering the entirety of her face. "We can't proceed like this," Inoichi said grimly. "We need to seal up that curse mark." "Ooh." Tsunade followed Tanbo Tobitake inside the intelligence division. Once they walked inside the room, her eyes immediately landed on Tayuya, who was convulsing uncontrollably on a makeshift bed. Two people were holding her down. One was Inoichi Yamanaka while the other was her apprentice. "Shizune. What's going on?" The black-haired medical nin turned around and met her master's gaze. Her expression slightly softened, but they were still on edge. "Lady Tsunade. Inoichi called me." She turned back to the struggling girl she held down. "Tayuya's having seizures, and it's been like this for 10 minutes. It stops, but it resumes again after a while." As the words left her mouth, Tayuya slackened. She lay unmoving with eyes looking dead straight ahead and mouth hanging slightly with saliva dripping down the corner of her lips. Tsunade approached them and saw the curse mark covering most of Tayuya's body. She placed a hand over the girl's face. No response. She closed Tayuya's eyes. "Do you have any idea what might be the cause of the attack?" "We have a theory that it might have something to do with the curse mark." Shizune nodded her head at Inoichi. Clearing his throat, the blonde explained. "It started after viewing some of her memories. There was a figure I saw inside her mind, and I suspect that it was a representation of the curse mark's chakra." Tsunade raised a brow. "Chakra?" He nodded. "I've been theorizing this for some time now. I suspect that the curse mark Orochimaru implants on his targets contains some of his chakra. I can sense that the girl's chakra and the curse mark's chakra are different. It's much darker. More foul. I see. But there's still the question of what triggered this reaction. From what I've heard, the other person who has Orochimaru's curse mark never experienced this kind of reaction." "Yes, Enko's records didn't show any of this," Shizune agreed. "We've read Tayuya's scans, but nothing seems to show up. Even my medical ninjutsu doesn't work." Her shoulders slumped down. "We just don't have much information about the curse mark." Tsunade placed a thumb between her teeth and examined the redhead again. Her breaths were rapid and shallow. She was sweating and shivering. The blonde placed a glowing hand over the girl's upper body, then to the lower body, and then back again to the chest area. She narrowed her eyes. "Nothing. There isn't anything wrong externally or internally, except possibly." She turned to Inoichi. I want you to search for the nearest Hyuga in the vicinity. Inoichi immediately made a set of hand signs that ended with a ram sign. He stood still in silence for but a moment but then shook his head. There aren't any Hyuga nearby but. He dropped down his hands. Kakashi is somewhere around the vicinity. He'll do. Send him in. He nodded his head and turned to his fellow division member. Tanbo, I want you to head out a few meters northeast from the building. You'll find Kakashi somewhere along that area with Guy on it. Tanbo quickly exited the room. Tsunade sighed. Inochi, you said that you viewed some of Tayuya's memories before this happened. The blonde nodded. Yes, I did see some, but they were mostly after the Chunin exams. Actually, Tanbo was about to give you the location of Orochimaru's hideout. Her eyes widened. What? Inoichi took a map on top of a desk and gave it to her. He pointed at the land he encircled earlier. I believe this is the location where they were going to take Sasuke Uchiha. The land of sound. Of course, Orochimaru did say he built a hidden village. There were sound ninja that entered the Chunin exams, right? He did. But the hidden sound village isn't a village at all. Our Anbu never found anything that remotely resembled a hidden village. But with this girl's memories, we might have a chance to locate the hidden base and recapture Sasuke Uchiha. Good work. Is there anything else? He rubbed his chin. I did see some of her memories before the Chunin exams but. The curse marks chakra. He nodded, narrowing his eyes. Yes. But also I encountered a third chakra inside her. It was shaped like a woman with long red hair. It didn't look like the girl because this one looked older and had blue eyes. Tsunade cupped her chin in thought. Another chakra. Suddenly, there was a knock on the doors which opened immediately afterward. The three looked as Tanbo entered with Kakashi Hatake right behind him. What's up? Kakashi raised a hand in greeting. Sorry for the slight delay. Guy wasn't going to stop until either one of us wins. No time for excuses. Kakashi, I need you to use your Sharingan to check the state of Tayuya's chakra. Tsunade stepped aside to reveal the redhead behind her. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. The curse mark. He lifted the headband hiding his left eye. His eyes widened. What? Even Sasuke's wasn't like this. What is it? Her chakra is in complete disarray. There's a point in the neck where it's more erratic. It looks like it's eating away her chakra. At this rate, her body will give way. And soon, she'll die. Her curse mark is located on the back of her neck, Shizune said, but the question still remains on why would it act like this right now. Tsunade cupped her chin, biting her lower lip. Something is affecting her chakra system, and it's connected to the curse mark. Maybe something was injected into her. Or something she took in. Inoichi's eyes widened. The pills. Pills. From her mindscape, I saw her taking pills. And just as she did, the curse mark's chakra overcame my own. Shizune suddenly gasped. Lady Tsunade. I remember she has a small bottle of pills in her possession. Looking at how she's from the sound, it might have come from Orochimaru. Tsunade finished. Suddenly, Tayuya stiffened and convulsed uncontrollably. Shizune and Inoichi immediately held her down. Tsunade gritted her teeth. Shizune, I need you to get me a sample of those pills. We need to make an antidote to counter its effects as soon as possible. Yes, milady. It's at the hospital. Follow me. Shizune ran out of the room. Tsunade followed her but stopped by the door, looking back at the three remaining inside. Tanbo, transfer Tayuya to the hospital. Report to me immediately if anything new happens. Yes, Lady Hokage. Tanbo moved over to the redhead and carefully lifted her in his arms. She shifted her gaze to the silver-haired Jonin. Kakashi, I want you to organize a search team to infiltrate Orochimaru's hideout. Coordinate with Inoichi regarding any information about it. I'll meet your team in 1600 hours at the gate. Kakashi nodded his head. Understood. Tsunade lied awake, sitting on a sofa and staring at the ceiling although looking at nothing in particular. It was the dead of night, but she still couldn't sleep. Her mind was too restless. What filled the blonde's mind was Tayuya, who was sleeping soundly in her hospital room. 3 Anbu were guarding her, as well as a few hand-picked medical nin, including Shizune, checking in on her condition which had stabilized hours ago. The toxins inside her body were removed by the antidote they made. From all the reports about her, she was a long-range genjutsu specialist. Her abilities were mostly sound-based. Her skills earned her a place as Orochimaru's bodyguards although they weren't present when he tried to force Tsunade to heal his arms. Still, she was powerful enough to earn her place and to be given the curse mark. The blonde could only guess that it was for that reason that Orochimaru had her taking pills. It probably increased the use and effectiveness of the curse mark, but such things always had a catch. She must have been taking it for a long time. And just by stopping and being cut off from that supply, her body underwent a severe withdrawal. She sighed. There's also the matter of the sound hideout. Kakashi and his team left earlier when she had checked up on them after giving Tayuya the antidote. She hoped they would bring back good news, but there was a chance that Orochimaru would be gone by the time they reached it. Only time would tell. Speaking of time, Tsunade smiled as her thoughts turned to Naruto. It had been 3 days since Jiraiya told her he would be taking Naruto with him on a 2.5-year training trip. 2 days ago they'd left the village. He didn't give a specific date, but he said that they would probably return by the time the Chunin selection exams would usually start. Orochimaru wouldn't attack the village again not without taking Sasuke Uchiha's body, but to do that, he would need to wait for another 3 years before he can use his immortality jutsu. They still had time. With all her heart, she believed in Naruto. He would come back strong. And one day, he would attain his lifelong dream of being a Hokage, although being Hokage is difficult, she commented, looking up at each of the framed pictures of the past Hokage before her. Her grandfather, her granduncle, her teacher, and her predecessor. All had given up their lives for the sake of the village, and now she must do the same. What being a Hokage truly meant was that no matter what crisis may befall on the village, the duty of protecting and raising the little leaves fell on her shoulders. Speaking of leaves to raise, Sakura had asked to train under her, and Tsunade couldn't refuse when she saw the guts and determination the kunoichi expelled. Naruto and Jiraiya, Sasuke and Orochimaru, Sakura and myself. It's a new generation of Sannin again. She closed her eyes. Naruto and Sakura would follow Sasuke no matter what. Jiraiya and I can only support them from their goal. Oh how I wish for a bottle of sake right now. Her thoughts were suddenly interrupted when there was a knock on the door. She sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Come in. The door opened, and Shizune entered the room, clipboard in hand. Lady Tsunade. I have some news. The blonde groaned, leaning back on the sofa. Please tell me it's the good kind. Shizune's sweat dropped. Well, I think it's good. But kinda slightly bad. She opened an eye, looking at her apprentice curiously. What do you mean by that? You know how Tayuya is one of Orochimaru's subordinates. I think that status will give us a problem, as well as the consequences of what she's done. We've already established this, Shizune. What are you getting at? Well, the medical nin scratched her cheek. You remember telling me to get a blood sample if there are any more of that toxin inside her. The thing is, I have the results, and I think you'll be very surprised at what you'll find. It's at the bottom, milady. At the blood test results. Tsunade scrolled down her eyes, landing at the blood test section. A blank look passed by her face as she finished reading it, but when understanding sunk in, her eyes gradually widened in shock, her mouth hung agape, her back sat straight as she clutched the clipboard tightly. This is, after all this time, it's no wonder why I mistook her for that tomboy when I was drunk. She quickly read it over and over again, particularly the words, positive, and Uzumaki. Lady Tsunade. Are you alright? Shizune's voice seemed to jolt Tsunade back to reality. Blinking back her eyes, she looked back at her apprentice. Shizune. Tayuya. She's an Uzumaki. The medical nin nodded. It's no wonder. She does have red hair. And she survived Temari's ninjutsu too. Normally, nobody would have lived after that. Should we tell Master Jiraiya and Naruto about this? Tsunade slumped back down on the sofa, looking up again at the past Hokage's portraits, particularly the first Hokage. She closed her eyes as she thought of her grandparents, Hashirama Senju and Mito Uzumaki. Together, the Senju and Uzumaki clan were unstoppable. What happened to the Hidden Eddy village was a tragedy. She sighed. I'll tell Jiraiya once they're back to the village. In Naruto, it'll depend on her answer. Tayuya. Tsunade nodded, eyes slightly dazed. I can't believe we found one. After all these years, I thought their entire clan and culture would just fade away into non-existence. Naruto has a chance to learn about his mother's clan. With Tayuya as an Uzumaki, he might just be able to learn their secrets. Shizune frowned. But do you think Tayuya even knows that she's an Uzumaki? It's been years since the Hidden Eddy village was destroyed. She couldn't have been born before its destruction. We'll just have to find out, won't we? Well, that's true. She has to wake up first too. 2 years and 8 months later, a young nurse, holding a clipboard, walked down to a room at the end of the hallway. Inside was a high-level patient prisoner. The girl had been in a coma for more than 2 years. It was her job as a nurse to check up on the patient to see if there were any changes to the girl's condition, but as she opened the door, she was in for a surprise when said patient was sitting up on her bed and looking at her with wide eyes. Why, you're awake, the nurse exclaimed as she fumbled at the wireless radio on her shirt's collar. This is code red. I repeat, this is code red. Patient number 750101 is conscious. Send the Anbu quickly. She took a quick glance at the patient to see the girl glaring at her. She took a step back when the patient tried to get off the bed but ended up face flat on the floor. With shaky limbs, the girl slowly got up and approached her like those undead zombies in one of those movies that she'd watched a few weeks back. Thankfully, 3 Anbu came just in time and subdued the girl. The patient weakly tried to break free, but it was no use. She could only shout with a hoarse voice, "Let go of me. Let go, you bastards." The patient eventually stopped trashing, and the nurse could see that the Anbu were tying the girl's hands behind her back. She placed a hand on her chest and sighed, but her ease was only temporary as she heard a gasp from the Anbu. Glowing chains shot out from the patient's back, swinging wildly and knocking out the 3 Anbu to the walls and the ceiling. The girl turned and glared at her, prompting her to fall down on her butt. She tried to get away, but her back hit a wall which left her so scared she embarrassingly slightly pissed herself. She closed her eyes tightly when the patient approached. She waited with bated breath for the feeling of death, but when it didn't happen, she took a peek and saw the girl leaning on a wall, hands pushing herself up for support. The glowing chains from before were also gone. The only thing left was a girl who painfully tried to drag herself forward. Footsteps were heard, and the nurse saw the Lady Hokage coming around the corner. She was saved. Why you? What are you doing here? The patient asked. There was a sudden blur. The nurse recognized the Jonin, Kakashi Hatake. He used his special eye to throw the girl back into unconsciousness. The Lady Hokage approached the nurse and helped her up. Kakashi joined them soon after with the patient in his arms. Looking inside the room where the 3 Anbu were knocked out, he asked, "What happened here?" The nurse gulped and exhaled out her nervousness. Her knees felt like lead. As she took out the Anbu with these glowing red chains. Both the Hokage and the Jonin looked at her in surprise. She what? A lone man stood in a grassy field, staring at a slanted kunai-shaped structure. There were engravings carved on its front, listing countless names of those who died in service for the Hidden Leaf Village. A shinobi's death was shed for love and peace. A memorial stone was built in their honor for their blood and sacrifice. What an honor it was to die for the sake of one's village, to ensure that it continued to grow, and the trees to sprout its little leaves for the next generation to come. Though in death they were gone, but in the hearts of their loved ones, their memories were preserved. A soft breeze gently brushed the man's silver locks as he remembered the days when the two of them would always be in conflict. Their skills, ideas, and character were complete opposites. Both were at the end of the spectrum. He was cool and collected while he was loud and brash. He would go for the best route, but he would do the opposite. He was the top of his class, and he was dead last. It was funny really how different they were, but when put together. We were a great team. Right, Obito? Kakashi smiled. Almost every day, he visited the memorial stone. Obito's body was never retrieved. He was crushed and buried alive by the enemy ninja's ninjutsu. He sacrificed himself without thinking of his well-being. He saved Kakashi not just from death but also as a person. The Jonin remembered the days when he acted cold and only deemed anything good if they were useful to him. Friendship was not essential. Only the mission was important. He would do anything in order to complete it even if it meant sacrificing his comrades. In the ninja world, those who break the rules and laws are regarded as scum. But those who would abandon either one of their friends are worse than scum. I'm scum anyway, so I'm gonna choose to break the rules. If doing that somehow makes me less than a true shinobi, then I'll just go and crush all of the so-called real shinobi. Obito's conviction shook Kakashi to the core. His words pierced the Jonin's cold heart. When Obito died, his ideals were passed down to Kakashi just as the Sharingan that now inhibited his left eye. He was Obito Uchiha's living legacy, and it was his friend's will he'd passed down to the next generation of shinobi. But I failed at that part too. He thought, gazing up at the clear blue sky. Yes, he taught his students Obito's words, but somehow, Sasuke never got the message. He was, how he'd put it, basically almost the same as the past Kakashi. No, the one that inherited Obito's will was Naruto. Every time he saw his blonde student, he would see Obito in him. Their ideals, their aspirations. And my future dream is to be the greatest Hokage. Then the whole village will stop disrespecting me and start treating me like I'm somebody. Somebody important. Kakashi smiled, wondering how his cute little genin was doing. Well, he guessed that Naruto wasn't that cute anymore, being that he was now 15 instead of 12. Kakashi pictured an older-looking Naruto in his head but with the same goofy grin and brash attitude. Crossing his arms, he nodded in agreement at his imagination. So this is where you were. Figures you would be here, Kakashi, a woman's voice said, interrupting his reverie. The Jonin turned around and saw a familiar face. The woman had waist-length purple hair, dark brown eyes, and red-tinted lips that formed a small smile. Smiling, he raised a hand in greeting. Hey there. Haven't seen you in a while, Yugao. That's because I'm quite busy. Putting both hands in his pockets, he gazed up at the sky. Ah, lost in the road of life. Is that it? Kind of. She chuckled softly, before walking towards the memorial stone and placing a bouquet of white roses at the base. Flowers for Hayate. She nodded. Thought I should drop by. It's been a while since I'm temporarily free of my charge. Ah, how is our little firecracker doing these days? He asked. Her response, however, was a deep and long sigh. His sweat dropped at that. I'm guessing it's no milk and honey. Yugao shook her head and stood up. You have no idea just how much I've had to control myself. For the first week, I've had the urge to take up my sword and just shut her up. Another sweat drop joined the first one. You're exaggerating, right? She looked to the side. Maybe. A third sweat drop sat beside the other two. It doesn't matter now anyway. Living together with her these past few weeks, I think I'm starting to understand her. Where is she anyway? She's where she should be. And by the way, Yugao looked back at Kakashi. My visit here isn't entirely in all honesty about Hayate. He raised a brow. Oh, Lady Hokage sent me to retrieve you. It seems that your record for tardiness never fails its mark. He rubbed the back of his head. Hey, you got me there. Shaking her head with a smile, she took the Anbu mask that hung by her hip and put it on, concealing her face from view. I'll be right by if anything happens. I'm guessing that Lady Tsunade is expecting them to arrive today. He chuckled softly. This'll be interesting. Ooh. Underneath the canopy of trees were two people walking down a rough road leading to the village of their birthplace. The road they traveled was long and tedious, but for the pair of leaf shinobi, the trip was worthwhile. After all, it had been a good 2 years and 9 months of hard work and training. Just the thought of going back home and getting to see everyone again made the 15-year-old blonde excited. His strides got longer, and his speed seemed faster. Naruto. Hey, slow down, will ya? The blonde stopped in his tracks, looking back at his white-haired perverted sensei. A big grin lit up Naruto's face as he pointed in the direction ahead of them where outlines of a large looming gate could be seen. I can see it, pervy sage. I can see the village from way over here. Jiraiya crossed his arms, smiling widely. A welcoming sight indeed for its returning shinobi. His face suddenly flushed, and a perverted grin appeared on his lips. Oh ho, I wonder if there are any available hidden leaf ladies that want to hang out with this handsome tiger, he laughed out loudly. Naruto's sweat dropped, muttering under his breath, no woman in their right mind would want to hang out with a perverted old geezer like you. He sighed and continued walking on ahead, looking more somber. I wonder how everyone's doing. I wonder how much the village has changed. A hand suddenly landed on his shoulder, making him look back in surprise. Hey now, why so glum all of a sudden? I thought you were excited to go home, kid. Jiraiya's words seemed to shake Naruto out of whatever trance he was in. Opting for his usual trademark grin, he saluted. Okay, let's go. It took the master and student a few minutes to see the full view of the intimidating gate of the Hidden Leaf Village, and as they passed by under its gaze, Naruto felt a sense of overwhelming joy. It brought an ecstatic feeling down in the pit of his stomach. Naruto was finally home. Ooh. There were 3 people inside the Hokage's office. Sitting behind the desk was none other than the Hokage herself. Her attendant, Shizune, was pouring her a cup of tea while a female Anbu stood in front of them. The girl had long red hair that fell down to her hips. Her face was covered by a cat-like mask decorated with red wavy lines on each side, an arc from the left ear down to the middle, and 2 small marks spilling at the eye holes. She wore the standard Anbu uniform with the signature spiral symbol tattooed on her right shoulder. I see your training is going well, Tsunade said. Now then, how about your control over your special chakra? Any luck? The redhead shook her head. I can't fully maintain it yet. My limit is about 10 seconds. It disappears after that. That's understandable. It's only been 3 weeks since you've started your training. It also doesn't help that your body still needs to recover to fully function. I'm healing just fine, she grumbled under her breath, crossing her arms. Anyway, about my request. When will you give me back my flute? Tsunade laced her fingers together, gauging the redhead's reaction. I haven't decided yet. I'll call for you when I deem it necessary. The girl's posture stiffened. Necessary? I don't understand. I'm already cooperating. I've given you everything I know about Orochimaru. I know, but I never once mentioned giving you back your flute. She scoffed indignantly. Why not? Genjutsu is my specialty. Not Kenjutsu, or sensory jutsu, or even this special chakra I have inside me. It's because you excel in Genjutsu that I won't yet allow you to use your weapon of choice. Be grateful that I'm even investing in having you trained. While the Uzumaki were well known for their complex and powerful sealing jutsu, a number of its clan members fought with the sword. Some of them were gifted with an innate sensitivity to chakra. The rarest being those who were born with a special type of chakra. Tsunade leaned back in her seat. To my surprise, not only do I find you a member of that clan, but you also have an innate ability for sensory ninjutsu, as well as possessing that special type of chakra. It's a shame you don't know anything about the Uzumaki clan's sealing jutsu. Well, sucks to be me. I didn't even know about my damn last name until recently. Tsunade sighed, starting to get a headache. Listen, Akage. My name is Tayuya. The redhead cut off. A tick mark pulsed on Tsunade's forehead. This girl. She inhaled deeply, pinching the bridge of her nose. You will be called by your codename, Akage Red Hair. Deal with it. You're still on probation, and I don't need others learning the truth about your origins. For now at least. Until then, I need your full cooperation. But I've already kept my end of the bargain. And I've kept mine. Tsunade countered. She remembered it fully well. Listen, I don't know how you ended up with someone like Orochimaru. But now, I'm giving you a choice. You can either give up any information you have regarding Orochimaru, and after 6 months of probation, I'll let you become a shinobi of this village. Or, Tsunade's expression turned deadly serious. You'll get to stay here and live as an ordinary citizen. But to do that, we would have to seal and block your chakra network. You will never be a shinobi again. The blonde narrowed her eyes. You accepted our deal. You're going to be a shinobi of this village. And becoming one means you'll listen to my orders. So stop whining like a brat and start acting like your age. Start acting like. Akage clenched her fist. I was in a coma, you bitch. It's not my damn fault I still feel 14. Tsunade stood up from her seat, slamming down her palms on the desk and making a noticeable crack in the wood. What did you say? Shizune quickly got in between them, raising her hands in the air. Please, stop it you two. Milady, I don't think she means anything by it, right? She turned to Akage and whispered, you should apologize right now. Please. The girl sighed, I apologize, for calling you a bitch. A darkened look crossed Tsunade's face. Say that to me again, and I'll make sure you'll wake up next time when you're 40. Akage's shoulders slumped down. She looked away, crossing her arms. I'm sorry. Shit. I know I'm rude to people. I have a bad habit of running my mouth. That's an understatement, Tsunade said, finally calming down. She sat back on her chair. Shizune sighed, thank goodness. Akage looked back at them. If you won't give me back my flute, then at least tell me when he's coming back. It's been a month, and I want to see him. The reason why I even accepted. She trailed off and turned to face the door. What is it? Tsunade asked. There are 3 people coming over to see you. I think one of them is Forehead. Shizune sighed again. Please stop referring to Sakura as that. Akage didn't give a reply, opting to stay silent as she moved to stand by the wall. They waited for a good minute before there was a knock on the door. Come in, Tsunade said. The door opened, and Sakura went inside with a big smile. She gave a quick bow and excitedly stepped aside, pointing at the blonde young man who stepped beside her. Lady Tsunade. Shizune. Look who's back. Tsunade examined him. Spiky blonde hair, 3 whisker marks on each cheek, and a toothy grin that could no doubt belong to none other than the Leaf's #1 hyperactive knucklehead ninja. A smile lit up her face. Well, look who's gotten taller. It's good to see you, Naruto. Shizune beamed. The blonde grinned, placing both hands on the back of his head. Nice to see you guys too. Behind the 2 teens, Jiraiya walked in and crossed his arms with a huff. Hey, what about me? I came back too, ya know. Tsunade only waved him off. Of course. We all know that. HMPH, you guys don't appreciate me much, do you? He pouted. She chuckled. Oh, stop being so overly dramatic, Jiraiya. It's good to see you. Alright, I'll forgive you just this once. A perverted grin suddenly appeared on his face. But only if you could do me a favor by helping me write my next novel. And I could only do that if you showed me your grand and bodacious body. A fast-flying projectile, a cup-filled tea, suddenly zoomed across the room, hitting its target and making a mark right in the middle of the toad sage's face. Tsunade scowled. I take back what I said. It wasn't good to see you, you pervert. Ooh. Together with Naruto and Shizune, Sakura's sweat dropped. She knew from first-hand experience what it was like at the end of her master's ire. I kinda feel bad for Master Jiraiya. But at the same time, he should have known by now not to aggravate her. She sighed as the toad sage grabbed his seemingly broken nose while comically writhing in pain on the floor. She stifled a giggle at the scene, placing a hand over her mouth, but that was when she noticed another person standing inside the room. It was the Anbu she'd recently seen these past few days. Sometimes when she visited her master, she would see the redhead giving the Hokage reports and giving Sakura unwanted stares. Although she couldn't see the Anbu's face, it unnerved her how the girl's stare felt as if they were boring holes right through her skull. Hey, Sakura, what's wrong? Naruto asked. The Chunin glanced back at the blonde, nodding her head. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just that. She looked back at the Anbu who crossed her arms and tilted her head to the side. Sakura didn't know what the girl was thinking, but she felt wary all the same. From the corner of her eye, she could see Naruto looking curiously at the Anbu as well. Tsunade suddenly cleared her throat, breaking them from their standoff. That is all, Akage. You're dismissed. The Anbu looked at her for a moment, before nodding her head. Standing up straight, she formed a half-handed ram sign, ready to disappear from sight, but then suddenly, she stopped, her body going rigid. Sakura raised a brow and wondered why this Akage was disobeying Lady Tsunade's orders. Her attention was drawn, however, to a sudden knock on the door. It opened to reveal two shinobi, one being a dark-haired Chunin in a ponytail while the other was a blonde Jonin from the hidden sand. Sakura smiled at the faces of Shikamaru and Tamari. She went to greet them and to tell them who was back, but the moment she opened her mouth, her voice fell silent when a sudden mass of murderous intent filled up the room. Sakura turned to face Akage, sweat dripping down her forehead. What's going on? Why is a member of the Anbu Black Ops acting like this? She glanced back at the person being directed at, Tamari. The Jonin grabbed the fan on her back, lowering her stance. What's the meaning of this? Who are you? Oh, a shame you don't even remember. Why don't you let me remind you? Akage's hand moved up to her mask. Akage. Tsunade suddenly barked. The Anbu stiffened and slowly dropped her hand, but the murderous intent never faltered. Shikamaru stood between the two girls, raising both his hands. Now wait just a sec. We're all allies and friends here, so drop the weapons and the glaring and all. Everyone just take a deep calming breath and. Akage's finger twitched, and Tamari automatically went in for the attack. She swung her fan in a downward slash, but the Anbu drew her sword to parry it. Using the momentum, she pushed the fan to the side, leaving the Jonin open. The redhead quickly moved for a counterattack, but before she could, somebody stopped her. Sakura's eyes widened at the sudden appearance of a purple-haired Anbu. She had a tight hold on Akage's sword arm. Meanwhile, Tamari retreated a foot back, glaring at the redhead. By the window, a silver-haired Jonin peeked inside. HMMN. Hey, guys. What's going on? Kakashi-sensei. Naruto exclaimed. The Jonin eye smiled. Hey, Naruto. Long time no see. Tsuki. Akage started, but the other Anbu placed a hand on top of her head. Later, the older Anbu said, before looking at the Hokage and nodding her head. We'll be taking our leave. She formed a half-handed ram sign. Before a poof of smoke covered their forms, Sakura noticed Akage looking at Naruto. The blonde on the other hand looked confused. When the smoke dissipated, both Anbu were gone. Sighing, Sakura placed a hand over her heart. That's a relief. I'm glad nothing bad happened. It's strange though that a member of the Anbu Black Ops would act insubordinately. I just hope nothing would come out of this. We don't need any trouble with the Sand Ambassador. She saw Temari marching towards Lady Tsunade. Maybe I spoke too soon. Lady Hokage, may I ask why one of your Anbu tried to attack me? Temari demanded. Shikamaru cleared his throat. Well actually, you were the one who attacked her first. He trailed off as the blonde answered him with a glare. He held up his hands. Whoa, easy there. I'm on your side. Tsunade sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose before looking at the Sand Ambassador. I personally apologize for any trouble one of my Anbu had caused you. Naruto shuffled towards Sakura. Hey, what the heck is going on anyway? The Chunin just shrugged. Beats me. She frowned after, looking at her master. But still, this is really odd however way you look at it. I wonder, what Lady Tsunade's relation with this Akage? There seems to be some other things going on too. That look Akage gave Naruto earlier. Maybe it's just my imagination. There's no need to apologize to me, Temari said, rubbing her forehead. This just came out of nowhere. No use troubling yourself about it, Shikamaru said, but now that's over. He walked towards the two blondes and handed a stack of papers. Lady Tsunade, these are the number of examinees entering for the Chunin exams. Tsunade took them. Good work. Thank you, Shikamaru. The Chunin exams? Wait, what's this about? Naruto suddenly asked. The Chunin exams are about to start, Temari answered. She placed both hands on her hips, sighing, still looking a bit miffed. I've been busy running back and forth your village and mine getting ready for them. The dark-haired Chunin put both hands inside his pockets. Yeah, that's right, and I'm her escort. It's a drag. And don't ask how it happened, but I've been put in charge of organizing the Chunin exams. The blonde's eyes had a faraway look. The Chunin exams, huh? Man, that takes me back. Yeah well, speaking of which, what are you gonna do, Naruto? About what? What do you mean? What do you think? About the Chunin exams. You're the only one in our year who isn't a Chunin. Everyone is but you. Naruto stood still for a moment, but then his eyes grew the size of dinner plates. Huh, he turned to her. Sakura, you've been made a Chunin. She giggled and made a peace sign. That's right. Oh, you haven't even heard the half of it. Shikamaru continued. Kankuro, Neji, and Temari here. He pointed at the blonde beside him. They've even taken it a step further. They've already been made Jonin. Jonin, what are you even talking about, huh? Naruto's brows furrowed. He suddenly looked troubled. What about Gaara? What's he? Gaara is our Cage, Temari answered. I see. So Gaara was named Cage. Naruto bowed his head, clenching his fist. Sakura glanced at her teammate worriedly. Oh, Naruto. And my future dream is to be the greatest Hokage. Then the whole village will stop disrespecting me and start treating me like I'm somebody. Somebody important. Sakura remembered those words fully well. At first, she thought it was stupid and would never happen. How could a loser and the king of pranksters become Hokage one day? But, Naruto, this is a once-in-a-lifetime request. Just bring him home. Please bring Sasuke back to me. I did everything I could. I tried, but I couldn't stop him from leaving the village. At this point, there's only one person who can stop him. Only one who can save him. Naruto, it's all up to you. Don't you worry one bit. I'm gonna bring Sasuke back. I promise that on my life, Sakura. I haven't given up. Listen, I'm still gonna keep my promise. After all, it was a promise of a lifetime, right? I meant it. If I say I'm gonna do it, that means I will, K. Don't forget. My way of the shinobi means I always stand behind what I say. That's great. Naruto looked back up with renewed determination. Well, I'm not to be outdone by him. I'm still gonna be Hokage one day. Just you wait, Gaara. Sakura smiled. I was wrong. You'll be a great Hokage one day, Naruto. I fully believe it. Ooh. Tsunade cleared her throat, gaining everyone's attention. Tough words. But you'll have to surpass me first if you wanna be Hokage. The blonde grinned, placing both hands behind his head. Right. Just you wait, Grandma. She chuckled. Well, now that everything's settled. Naruto, your training proved to be fruitful, I hope. Jiraiya looked just a tiny bit offended. You think we would have come back without producing any results? Mission accomplished, Grandma. Naruto gave a thumbs up. Tsunade laced her fingers together. Huh, I'm glad to hear it. Show me what you got, kid. What? Right now, I have someone I'd like you to go up against. I've kept him off missions the last few days, so he'd be ready for just this moment. Your opponent will be. She looked at Kakashi, who was reading a red book by the corner. He was giggling and had a hand over his mask. One of her eyebrows twitched. This is no time to be fooling around, Kakashi. Oh, sorry. The Jonin rubbed the back of his head and pocketed his book. What's up? Tsunade rubbed her forehead. Geez, it's like I'm handling children. Oh, yeah. Naruto bumped a fist on his palm. He rummaged through his weapon pouch and took out a green book. He walked over to Kakashi with a giggle and sing-songed. I got something for you, sensei. A little present. HMMN. Kakashi's eyes suddenly widened, and his hands shook like a leaf. No way. Is that really? The first new issue of the Makeout series in 3 years. Naruto handed the book to the Jonin. Pretty boring if you ask me, but I know you like this stuff so. Kakashi clearly fangirled as he opened it gingerly. Everybody in the room, except Jiraiya and Naruto, sweat dropped. Tsunade shook her head with a sigh. Calm down, Kakashi. The Jonin dropped his expression, closing the book. Right. He looked over to Naruto. The blonde blinked back his eyes. HMMN. So I guess. Are you my opponent? Well, you're half right. He turned to look at his other student. HMMN. Been a long time, hasn't it, Sakura? Yes, it has, sensei. The Chunin nodded. So as to who my opponent will be. It's Naruto and Sakura. The two of you. Ooh. A pair of Anbu jumped from building to building, getting farther away from the Hokage's office. Tayuya followed her guardian, seething in silence. She breathed heavily, her fists clenched tightly. She didn't notice where they were until they stopped and ended up in a clearing. The 7th training ground. It was the place where Tasuki started to train her 3 weeks ago. Said guardian immediately confronted her. What happened? Tayuya crossed her arms, scowling behind her mask. It was her. It was the bitch who dropped a ton of trees and almost killed me. Do you have any idea who that is? I already told you. She's the bitch. That person is the Hidden Sand Village's ambassador. So, I don't give a rat's ass what her position is. She almost killed me. That still doesn't give you a reason to disobey orders and do as you wish. The Sand Ninja are our allies. Tayuya scoffed. Easy for you to say. It's not like you were personally wronged by your precious sand allies. Shut up. Tasuki growled. Don't talk as if you know anything about me. Tayuya went rigid at the sudden chill she felt. She narrowed her eyes. How could I when you don't even tell me a thing about you? She swallowed her retort and waited for the Anbu to continue. If you think you are the only one who was wronged by the hidden sand, you are sadly mistaken. I'm sure you haven't forgotten what they did to the Leaf Village 3 years ago. What you did seemed to be a silent message. Dropping her hands, Tayuya looked down with gritted teeth. Of course, I remember. I was a part of it. As Lord Orochimaru jumped onto the roof with the third Hokage in tow, the sound force scattered to its four corners. HMMN. Finally it's my time, Kidomaru said. We've all been waiting for this. I was so frustrated hiding in that disguise, Sakin replied. Tayuya put a hand on her hip. You're all sweaty too. So gross. Come on, we're all friends here, right? Jirobo said. Do it, Lord Orochimaru commanded. Right. Tayuya made a snake hand sign. Together with her teammates, they all shouted, Ninja art, four flames formation. A purple flame barrier covered the roof from all four sides, trapping the third Hokage inside. Tayuya sighed, looking back at the other shinobi. I understand. Tasuki only stared back. Do you? Irked. Tayuya replied, I haven't forgotten my place. I won't do anything to the Sand Ambassador. And she meant it. She would swallow her pride as long as it meant she could attain her goal. However, the older Anbu continued her stare as if trying to see for any signs of deceit. The redhead rolled her eyes behind her mask, crossing her arms. It won't happen again, I promise. Silence stood between them, until Tasuki broke it off with a sigh, shifting her gaze to the far-off distance. 3 years ago during the Chunin exams, the proctor for the third round was supposed to be a shinobi called Hayate. Confused, Tayuya asked, What are you talking about? Telling you my story. I want you to listen. Now this got the redhead's attention. Okay. Kabuto Yakushi. You know him, correct? Yeah, for as long as I remember he was with Orochimaru. Tasuki nodded. Tensions were running high after learning that Orochimaru was somewhere within the village. Spies were naturally to be expected if Orochimaru could have infiltrated that easily. And soon after, Kabuto was confirmed to be one of them. The third Hokage tasked Hayate to track him down. But by the morning after, she clenched her hand. Quote, I found his corpse near Kikyo Castle. On his grave, I swore to avenge his death. But by the time I learned who was responsible, it was already too late. The hidden leaf and sand were allies once again. Was it a sand ninja who killed him? Yes, I believe so. Tayuya frowned. You're not sure. To tell you the truth, I don't know who exactly killed him. But there's one thing I know for certain. His wounds. Those slash marks were too finely cut to be done by any blade. It was a wind type of jutsu that did it, which shinobi from the hidden sand were known to master. Tasuki returned her attention back to the redhead. You should know firsthand what it had looked like. Tayuya paled at that memory she tried so hard to forget. You don't have to remind me. I remember it perfectly well. That's why I can't forgive her for what she did to me. Tasuki shook her head. You don't have to forgive. I certainly don't. Tayuya was about to go on another rant, but stopped. There was still a missing piece of the puzzle in the story. This Hayate, he was someone close to you. Yes, she confirmed. Hayate was my lover. Tayuya's eyes widened. What? So you see, I do have a reason to hate the Sand Village. But as they are now our allies, what I feel doesn't matter. It does matter. Tayuya blurted out. If someone precious to me was killed. She clenched her fists. I'd do everything in my power to get my revenge. Tasuki shook her head. Tempting. But getting revenge isn't worth it. Why not? You said you swore to avenge him. I did. But I can't afford to. Because in the end, I would put aside my desire for revenge all for the sake of peace and stability of the village. That's what it means to be a shinobi. Tasuki walked a few feet back, drawing her sword. You are a part of this village now. And as a leaf shinobi, you must understand that it is your duty to protect it no matter the cost. Now, she pointed her blade at Tayuya. Draw your sword. It's time to start training. Tayuya closed her eyes and breathed in deeply, letting go of her clenched fist. Duty to the village. She drew her sword, shifting into a battle stance. I'd rather choose those who are precious to me than a village that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm ready. Ooh, Later in another part of the forest at the third training ground, Jiraiya jumped on a branch and sat down. Below his tree, standing behind a bush, were Tsunade and Shizune. The three of them watched and waited as Naruto and Sakura faced off against Kakashi. Their goal was to get the 2 bells from Kakashi before sunrise. Jiraiya grinned. "Now, show us the results of your training, Naruto," said Genin. Made his first move as he threw 4 shuriken at Kakashi. "Let's go." The Jonin quickly ducked down as the shuriken passed above him, countering with his own. Naruto jumped upward to avoid being hit, but it was the wrong move as Kakashi threw another set of shuriken at the blonde. Naruto immediately made a hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. He used the Shadow Clone to pull the original out of harm's way. "Impressive," Kakashi commented, which made Jiraiya's grin wider. It was short-lived, however, as he saw the Jonin dashing towards the blonde. Naruto landed on the ground and made another hand sign. "Transform." There was a poof of smoke, and the blonde changed into a large shuriken. His Shadow Clone grabbed the transformed shuriken, but before he could throw it, Kakashi managed to grab a hold of him, stopping his movements. "That'll be enough of that," Kakashi said. Jiraiya smirked as he saw another Naruto dash in and point a kunai at Kakashi's back. Huh. When the kid transformed, he was actually making another Shadow Clone. It was the second Shadow Clone who turned into the shuriken while the original hid and waited for a counterattack. "Not bad," Tsunade said. "Incredible," Shizune complimented. "You've matured, haven't you, Naruto?" Kakashi acknowledged. "However, you still have a ways to go. It's obvious, you're as impatient as ever. You attacked before I even had a chance to say start. Now, let's do this properly. Ready? Start. ... I never dreamed I'd go down 'cause of this," Kakashi said dejectedly at the green book he was holding. Naruto and Sakura jiggled their newly acquired bells with a giggle. "I should have just gone ahead and finished it." Naruto laughed. "What are you even wasting your time with that for? It's the most boring book ever." From atop a high branch, Jiraiya pouted and crossed his arms. "HMPH, little idiot. But you can't expect a kid to appreciate great literature. People would kill for a copy. It hasn't even been released yet." Still, he smirked. That unpredictable move worked in their favor. "Yeah, the pervy sage loaned it to me," Naruto continued. "But it was such a snooze fest, I didn't make it past page 10. He placed his arms behind his head. "So you know, I couldn't have spoiled it for ya." "Wah." Kakashi shakily pointed a finger at the blonde, trying to make out a coherent response, but then he slumped down in defeat. Even though Naruto didn't know the ending, we figured just the mention of make-out tactics would be enough to freeze you in your tracks. Sakura explained. "Pretty good strategy, huh? You two have certainly demonstrated some growth." Tsunade walked out from behind the bush with Shizune in tow. "Oh, milady." The blonde stopped a few feet away from them. "Kakashi, is there anything you'd like to say?" "Well," the Jonin shrugged. "They did a great job getting hold of those bells, so." She nodded her head. Naruto and Sakura looked at each other. The blonde dropped his arms and turned back to Kakashi. "Why? What are you guys talking about?" "Well, we've been discussing what your status will be in the future, Naruto," Shizune answered. "HMMN. He turned back around to them. "What our status will be?" "Naruto Uzumaki," Tsunade called. "Why yeah, speak up." He stood up straighter. "Oh yes, ma'am, Sakura Haruno. Milady," the Chunin answered. Tsunade looked between the two and at last Kakashi. "You two are a team again, along with your old sensei. From this day on, you'll be Team Kakashi." "Team Kakashi," Sakura said. "That sounds pretty cool. So what'll we be doing then?" "What's the scoop?" Naruto asked. "It means we'll be going on all of our missions together," Kakashi answered. "You and I will be peers now." Naruto and Sakura turned around to face him. That's the long and the short of it. The days of sensei and student are past. We're Leaf Shinobi on equal ground. Got it. Oh, yeah, 110%. Jiraiya placed a hand on his hip, his smirk growing wider. He's all grown up. His gaze then shifted to his old teammate, watching her as she headed out of the forest. Ooh, the lights were off, and only the moon shone down inside the Hokage's office. Sitting on her chair, Tsunade took a shot of sake, draining it in one gulp and then pouring herself another. This cycle continued on until one of the windows opened. The blonde groaned and laid her head on the table. What are you even doing here at this hour? I'd figured you'd be peeping on girls right about now. Now we wouldn't want me to be that predictable, now would we? An annoying laugh came from the new person inside the room. Tsunade lifted her head to take a peek and saw Jiraiya smiling down at her. He took a chair from the side and sat down across from her. Bringing out a cup under his kimono, he poured himself a drink out of her bottle of sake. So, now that Team Kakashi is newly reformed and all, how about you tell me what was that about with that redhead earlier this afternoon? What was her name again? Akage, was it? What? You're doing research on troubled teenagers now? She smirked at her joke. When he didn't laugh with her, she frowned with a sigh. Sitting up straight, she made a set of hand signs to activate a number of seals hidden inside the room. He drank his sake and looked around, smiling a little. What's with all the secrecy? Is it that serious? I don't want eavesdroppers learning about any of this. Opening a drawer on the left side of the table, she took out another bottle of sake and poured herself another drink. She leaned back on her seat. A few weeks ago, I assigned one of my Anbu to oversee Akage and placed her within its ranks. That way, I can keep a close eye on her. He poured himself another drink. I can tell that she's not just your ordinary shinobi for you to be lax about her not following orders. He took another shot. I take it that isn't even her real name. No, it isn't. Her real name is Tayuya. And apparently, she's a member of the Uzumaki clan. That made him sit up straight, his eyes widening. What? Are you serious? Why am I only learning of this just now? Believe me, I wanted to. But there were complications. I wasn't too sure if she would be of any use back then. What do you mean? There's a reason why I've only assembled search parties over the Land of Fire these past few weeks. I'm sure you've already heard of this. He nodded. I have. I don't know where you got your information. Finding some of our old friends' hidden bases is impressive. I've been having a hard time tracking them down myself. I have Tayuya to thank for that. He frowned. Are you suggesting there's a connection between the girl and Orochimaru? Unfortunately, yes. She was one of his bodyguards and was one of the shinobi who escorted Sasuke Uchiha out of the village. Tsunade drank her sake. She was also an accomplice with the murder of the third. What? His brows scrunched down. If you know all of that, then why are you even letting her walk freely? Simply because I made a deal with her. In exchange for information, I would pardon all her crimes against the Leaf Village. She drank another shot of sake. I would still keep her in the village, but I made her choose on whether she would stay as a civilian or become a Leaf Shinobi. As you saw, she chose the latter. He shook his head, crossing his arms. I still don't understand. You could have gotten all that information from the intelligence division. Why integrate her in the Leaf Village? Is it because she's an Uzumaki? Tsunade sighed, rubbing her forehead. Partially, yes. And I did give her to the intelligence division. Unfortunately, they can't access her memory. How? She shook her head. I don't know. What about Ibiki? Out of the question too. He narrowed his eyes. Why? She shrugged. It's the reason why we've only recently started to search for Orochimaru's hideouts. Ibiki couldn't get any information out of Tayuya because she had been in a coma until just last month. Jiraiya closed his eyes and leaned back in his seat, breathing deeply. He opened his eyes and poured himself another drink. Are you sure you can at least trust her? Tsunade put down her cup and weaved her fingers together. No. That made Jiraiya bark out a humorless laugh. That's a horrible way to put me at ease. My bad. She chuckled. I can't trust her. Not yet at least. That's why she's on probation for now. I see. He heaved a sigh and drank his sake. So what made you change your mind and offered her a deal instead of giving her to Ibiki when she woke up? Tayuya. She has a special type of chakra. Special chakra? Are you saying that? She nodded. Yes. But it's different from that tomboy's adamantine chains. From what I've seen, Tayuya's is more offensive rather than sealing or barrier ninjutsu like Kushina's. He rubbed his chin. So that's why. You want to utilize her jutsu in favor of the Leaf Village. That's another part of it. What's the main part then? She smiled ruefully. After I learned that she was a member of the Uzumaki clan, I thought about how Naruto could learn more about his mother's clan. I had hoped that Tayuya could teach Naruto about the Uzumaki clan's famed sealing jutsu, but she doesn't know any. He finished. Tsunade nodded. It's a shame. But their entire culture and jutsu are lost. Only a few remnants of that clan are still left alive. He crossed his arms, raising a brow. Do you think she's telling you the truth? What if she's lying that she doesn't know? It's possible. I've already thought of that scenario. She closed her eyes. But I do have leverage to keep her loyal to the village. Give me one good reason why I should accept your terms, Hokage. Then maybe I'll consider your offer. Tsunade sighed and took a seat, narrowing her eyes. Her brows softened as she looked outside the window. We have a shinobi here who's a member of the Uzumaki clan. Although he's away for the time being on a 3-year training trip, he'll probably be back around next month. Who is he exactly? I think you've met him before during the recovery mission. His name is Naruto Uzumaki. She only accepted my deal when I told her about Naruto. I can only guess what she'd want with the kid. Jiraiya rubbed his chin. But I doubt she'll get any as he doesn't even know who his parents are. Be careful when she learns this. I know. Tsunade nodded. I have one of my Anbu monitoring her movements. And if she ever does anything drastic, then our deal is off. She sighed. I hope it doesn't come to that though. Part of me is hoping that if anyone could change her, I'm betting it's Naruto. Jiraiya grinned. It probably won't work as you're the one who's betting. She scowled. You wanna take me up on that? He laughed. It wouldn't look good on my image if I were to bet against my student. He shook his head with a smile. Alright, I trust you on this. But I want to test her out tomorrow if that's alright with you. She shrugged and took another drink. Go ahead. I'll tell her guardian to clear out for whatever plans you have tomorrow. Thanks, Tsunade. Jiraiya drank one last time, before standing up and heading out the window. I want to know her true intentions before I leave the rest to Naruto. Ooh. Under the gaze of the bright full moon, a silhouetted form looked down at an apartment building, particularly at a closed window just a few meters away. Tayuya sat down on a nearby rooftop while waiting. I wonder if this is even the right place. She raised her hand to look at the item she held. It was a letter she wrote after a whole day of training with Tasuki. She didn't really get a chance to talk with her. I don't even know what he is to me. Fellow clan member. She had hoped that the Hokage would introduce the two of them, but with the way she behaved herself earlier, she doubted that Tsunade would even let them meet, at least not for a good while. She frowned. This is stupid. Is this even a good idea? Suddenly, the window she was watching opened, and out came Naruto Uzumaki, coughing out dust. She quickly hid behind a nearby water tank, pocketing her letter and peering out to see the blonde inhaling a good amount of fresh air. When he went back inside, she quickly jumped down to the next building, crossing the rooftop and landing on the nearest tree. From this view, she could see him picking up a picture frame and sitting down on his bed, his back facing her. It was her chance. She jumped over to the apartment building and landed with a quiet thud on the platform just outside his window. You see, I finally made it back here, Sasuke. Tayuya heard him say. She took a peek inside and saw him stretching his arms while looking around the room. Alright, I guess I'd better clean this up before I turn in. He made a hand sign by crossing both his index and middle fingers together. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 6 other Narutos appeared in a cloud of smoke. The original placed both hands on his hips. Alright, you guys. Time to clean up. You two will clean this room while 2 others in the bathroom. Me and the rest will handle the one outside. He then pumped his fist. Okay. Let's go. Right. The shadow clones shout in unison. While the other 5 Narutos left the room, the 2 remaining shadow clones found a broom inside a narrow closet. One shadow clone went to sweep the floor while the other picked up a rag to wipe the dust and cobwebs from the furniture. Tayuya's eyes softened while watching the ordinary scene. Shadow clone, huh? She remembered that he did have that jutsu in his arsenal. Naruto made a shadow clone and formed something in his hand while his 2 teammates intercepted Saken. The sound ninja blasted them away with a series of quick and strong punches, but his opponents suddenly poofed out in a cloud of smoke. Naruto went in for a counterattack. Rasengan. Tayuya backed away and hid behind the wall. Wrenching off her mask, she screwed her eyes shut as a flood of memories haunted her mind. Stop it. They're all gone. And you're still alive. She grabbed a tight hold of her shaking hand, gritting her teeth and breathing in deeply and out. She looked at the moonlit sky above, and eventually, her nerves calmed down. Hooking her mask on her hip, she peeked back inside and saw that the shadow clones were just finishing. A few minutes later, they exited the room. Tayuya jumped inside and walked over to the bedside drawer where the picture frame Naruto was looking at earlier sat. It was a photo of him and his team, Kakashi of the Sharingan, Sakura, and Sasuke Uchiha. She had mixed feelings about what she'd done and wondered if Naruto would even accept her if he ever knew who she truly was. Sighing, she took out the letter inside her pocket and placed it beside the picture frame. Her eyes shifted again to the photo, and a mirthless chuckle escaped her lips. Now that I've thought about it, I've never owned a photo of myself before. Placing a hand on her hips, she looked at the orange alarm clock twice the size of her fist beside the picture frame. Taking a step back, she looked around the room. It was all right for someone who lived all by himself, cozy even. It was so much more than what she'd had. She noticed a small closet on the side and found herself getting curious. Carefully opening it, she saw a few clothes inside that seemed too small on him now. To her distaste, most of them were the color of orange. What piqued her interest though was a cute little black and white nightcap. Picking it up, she patted off the dust and placed it on her head. It fit perfectly. A small smile lit up her face. She was jolted back to reality, however, when she heard the sound of footsteps coming closer. Her eyes widened, and she quickly scrambled towards the open window, remembering at the last second that she was still wearing the blonde stupidly cute hat. She quickly threw it on the bed, and just as she crouched outside the window, she heard the door opening and closing, followed by footsteps. Taking a peek, she looked at the boy with wonder. Seeing him again after 2 years, Naruto Uzumaki didn't look like he'd changed a whole lot, except for getting taller. She remembered being the same height as him. Now he was a full head taller than her. Although, he still looked like that blonde orange shit she saw at the Chunin exams and at her final mission as a sound shinobi. Suddenly, Naruto unzipped his jacket, tossing it on the floor together with his mesh armor. Tayuya's eyes widened, and her mouth slightly hung agape. Heat crept up her cheeks as she got a full view of his back. To make matters worse, he was about to take off his pants too. She shut her eyes, and her hands flew up to cover her face. She tried to back away, but her foot accidentally slipped on the platform, making noise. Shit. Ooh. Naruto suddenly heard a noise coming from outside the window. Zipping up his pants, He went to check it out, but when he searched the vicinity, he saw nothing there. A bead of sweat slipped down his temple, and a worried look painted his face. There's no ghost around here, is there? He chuckled mechanically. Right. No ghost. Ghosts aren't real, you know. Putting on a black shirt, he took off his orange pants, leaving him in a pair of green shorts. Soon, he noticed his old nightcap sitting on top of the bed. Although he couldn't remember taking it out of the closet, he shrugged off the nagging feeling, fitting the cap snugly on his head. When he finally sat down on the bed ready for sleep, he noticed a piece of neatly folded paper on top of his bedside drawer. Reaching for it, he opened it up and read what it said. Come meet me at the 3rd training ground tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning. Naruto tilted his head to the side. Huh.